Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. I'm at home, which is no bad thing. It's all less flustered and all that sort of thing. We are joined this evening by Ian, who wasn't going to join us, but he's joining us for an argument with Philip, who's kicking off for the fight, and of course Mr. Simpson, who will be adjudicating from the sidelines. Gentlemen, a very good evening to you. I hope you're all well.
G'day.
Yeah. G'day. It's just Southern Hemisphere charm there. Let me get the I don't know what I did with the comments, but I will find them in a minute. Okay, right, where are we going to start? I was going to start off by saying congratulations to Rudi Browning for becoming the FAI drone racing champion. That's a good thing. I wonder exactly which championship's going to settle down as being the one, but I should imagine the FAI one will be the one. Does anyone have any thoughts on that before I move off?
I don't know if it will actually. I mean, there's a lot of commercial interest in the drone racing thing. You've got DRL, you've got the MotoGP, what is it, the GP something or other. There's a lot of different players trying to commercialize that piece of the market space. And I think that if they can get the sponsorship dollars, then the FAI will become like, you know, the Special Olympics where, you know, it's there and everyone knows it's there. It's very worthy. We want to see the real action, you know.
The Special Olympics. Oh, you've made friends there, Bruce. You've made friends. There's no doubt about that. But surely they're the sanctioned ones. They're the ones that the grown-ups are associated with. And I did see some of it, but it was tiny drones on a huge track, wasn't it? Or tiny racing quads, enormous track. You could hardly see the things. Yeah,
and I've noticed that most of the mainstream media outlets have got sort of fragments of stuff. It doesn't make sense. You go to a news site, you expect a report, and all you've got is this poor Thai girl sitting there looking like she's been tortured to fly drones. You know, she looks big on her face. She didn't look happy at all, did she? The little Thailand girl from Thailand. She didn't look happy at all. And there was no commentary, there was no voiceover, there was nothing. There was just this one guy standing there, and when the camera goes on, he's, oh, you know. And then, I couldn't believe how poorly the mainstream media covered it. But probably they need to hit an airliner or something to get the real coverage. But it was, you know, it's like a lot of the FAI competitions. They're there, they exist, but they just don't capture the public's eye. They don't get the coverage. They just, like, you know, within the community of which they apply, they're all very well and good, but they just don't have the draw of the more mainstream commercialized events. And until we get that sort of groundswell of people saying, wow, drones are great, look at these kids are doing wonderful things, it's not going to make much difference. It's going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's where the freedom class is going to be really good, because you can actually see the drones. And the crashes are going to be expensive, and therefore that's fun.
Yeah, that's sort of where I was going with my thinking and my comment there. It was just small things going past, and enormous drones going through the thing of the lick, and with a big crash would have been much better. But it was a good start, and it has been all over the media everywhere, from BBC through to American channels. I'm sure Australia, New Zealand, everywhere else.
The best comparison would be the FAI events versus the Red Bull events. Look at the Red Bull. Everyone knows Red Bull. Everyone watches it. It's a spectacle. It draws crowds. They line waterfronts and things to watch the Red Bull. FAI, whatever it is, their events, yeah, they're a sort of a well-kept secret.
Maybe. Yeah, well done to him anyway. Well done. And yeah, I suppose we should jump straight, because I think if anyone is watching, they're here to see Philip, and Philip will now have a multitude of well, hopefully I haven't prompted him actually. Have you got a multitude of things to tell us about, Philip, or just one thing? You're back from China. You're back from the Pilot conference in China, at which Hex Technology announced a whole load of new stuff. Perhaps you could try and build it into crescendo, because I think we all know what most people are interested in. Oh, hello. Oh, yes.
Wearing my Hex T-shirt from the conference. The best thing about conferences is more T-shirts.
Well, yeah, look, I'm doing the same. Exactly, yeah. More conferences actually get new clothing. And good day to Louis. How you doing?
Hi, guys. How's everything?
Very good. We've been waiting for you to start, so we can start now.
It was good till you got here, Louis.
Oh, thanks, Bruce.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to make a coffee. I'll be back in a sec.
All right, mate. So tell me, Philip, what's the exciting stuff that you revealed there?
Well, look, I mean, obviously we have a we're getting in with rainbows and inclusion.
Oh, look at that.
With our cubes. So we have the obviously the black that everyone's already well and truly familiar with. Solo people will know the green, which updates Solo to fix some of the little bugs that it came out with. And then we've talked a bit about the F7 version of the cube, which is the yellow. And then just because F7s aren't fast enough, we've got the H7 version of the cube, which is double the speed of the F7. And we have the blue cube, which is made in USA. So production on that starting within a couple of weeks.
And when you say made in USA, how made in USA? Have you shipped all the bits in from China and you're assembling it there, or how made in USA is it?
From the PCB up. So yeah, the whole thing. So we've basically replicated everything we've got in Taiwan in our factory and moved everything exactly the same over to the USA in the Bay Area. Yeah. So.
And that allows people that might be worried about data security issues or other chips that might have gone onto boards in production, and to have a board that is completely free of operator, nothing's been loaded on it. What are the advantages? I'm rambling. You tell the truth.
The advantages are local made really does appeal to a lot of people. I mean, it does in pretty much any country. Being able to say, hey, this is made here, is something that does appeal. Using US labor, using creating US jobs, etc., etc. It does mean something to people. So people really wanted it, and yeah, we're quite happy to provide it. Now, Taiwan being a country that is not affected by the trade embargo means that the Cube Black doesn't have any extra import duties and all that sort of stuff on it, which is very nice. And Taiwan's considered a friendly country to the US,
Yes.
et cetera, et cetera. So that really wasn't an issue, but people just wanted to be able to say, hey, this is made in the USA, and to be able to have that extra bit of local content. Obviously, as far as what's loaded onto it, well, it's open source code. It's open source bootloader. You can erase the chip to nothing and put whatever you want on there anyway. So from a data security point of view, unfortunately, that's actually a little bit hard to explain to some people, how easy it is to actually verify that any flight controller that's running open source is actually quite easy to verify that it's not doing things it's not meant to be doing. That's one of the biggest benefits of open source, is you can actually verify everything that's on the autopilot. But people want that added security of made local. So yeah, more than happy to oblige.
And do you pay much more for that?
It's going to be about twice the cost. Labor cost is significantly more. So yeah, component cost, PCB cost is all basically the same. It's really just the labor cost that goes up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're probably not going to answer this, but there's enough of a demand to make it worth doing. You're going to say yes, aren't you?
we think so. We'll find out. There's a lot of people asking for it. Whether people are willing to put their money where their mouth is, that's another matter altogether. We'll find out. And yeah, we'll see if we sell out our first batch.
And
with pick and place machines, with pick and place machines doing most of the build, is labor really even a particularly large factor?
The use of the pick and place machine, obviously, compared to the old days of soldering all the individual components on, yeah, it takes a massive amount of cost out of it. But that's, autopilots dropping from $10,000 down to what we have now. The bit that takes a lot. I mean, the cube has, a lot of parts to it. The assembly actually takes about 20 steps. There's 20 stages on the production line to actually put a cube together. So there's still a lot of labor involved, which doesn't hurt that much when you're building it in Taiwan. But when you ship it over and start adding those numbers together, it adds up pretty darn quick. Yeah.
But can't they use Mexicans?
There's a heritage piece to that in some ways, but anyway, maybe
I love the way Australia is making America great again.
but you'll notice we made it blue.
Yeah. And did you just pick all these colors at random, or is there some fiendish code to it?
There is. My stepdaughter's favorite color is yellow, so yes. Yes, no, it's yeah. The green for Solo was picked because Solo's got the green in the logo, so that's why we picked green for that one.
Why do I need an H7 being twice as fast as an F7, and why on earth do I need that? Just because that's the sort of guy I am. I put racing stripes on my Holden or something like that.
Yeah, look, really, at the moment, I will still be once the yellows and the oranges are available in the store, I'll still be recommending the black to most people, because there currently isn't really a huge amount that we need. When Argipilot moved to Chibios, we gained such efficiency in Chibios that we sort of didn't need it, but we were already well down that path. I mean, the first cube with an F7 in it, I actually built in 2015, and so we've been ready for it for a while, but it's not really super necessary at the moment. But like everything, it's like the megapixel wars. Bigger is better, and people want it, and if people want it, well, we'll do it. So that's the explanation for the yellow. The orange, there are secret reasons for that one that will become very, very obvious sometime in the future. And it's not, part of it is about the speed, and part of it is about it being different to the others. So
one of these cubes is not like the other. One of these cubes is not quite the same. I see.
What was that?
It doesn't matter. It's a code. It's a code. You don't need to know. You don't need to know.
The thing about CPU power is that it's like you can never be too rich or too beautiful, and you can never have enough CPU cycles, because the code will always expand to fill the available space and the available resource. So it's future proofing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we saw that, unfortunately, with we moved from the APM to the PX4 board, the PX4 1, and then the PixHawk, and when that move happened, the space got filled up very quickly, for the fact that, like we were just discussing before, a flight with an APM. I've still got some boards that fly planes really well with the APM, and we've added all of this code to do that better, and it takes up a lot more room now. And some of those features are really cool, and some of those features are not really noticed by too many people. So I've never seen a software guy that's complained that he's got too much RAM or too fast a processor or anything like that. So yeah.
And I suppose the main event, the thing that's got people most excited, now I think I'm going to get the name wrong. Is it the hearing? Oh no, hang on, the purple one. Sorry, got to go for the pink one first. The one you made brilliant.
It's actually purple. I've purposefully, the pink one is reserved specifically for a Lewis special.
It's a My Little Pony edition.
So we'll get it to Lewis eventually. But yeah, the purple's the slim. So basically, it doesn't have vibration isolation. It's for places like rovers, boats, cars, anything where you really just don't need the added redundancy of the extra IMUs, and you don't need the vibration isolation. So little planes, anything like that. The carrier board is compatible with any of the cubes. So put whichever one.
Okay. Now I think there's some confusion there. It's the carrier board and the cube. Which bit is the autopilot, and what's the bit on top, and all that? I see people around about on forums talking all sorts of nonsense about it. So perhaps you could just very, very quickly explain what the bit at the bottom is and what the cubey bit is.
That's these are the autopilots. Everything you need to fly an aircraft is in there. The bottom part is basically a wiring loom. That's really all it is just a way of getting signals out, a breakout board. That's it. So no smarts on the bottom bit. The bottom bit is interchangeable. There's about 20, I think we're up to about 29 carrier boards out in the market now. We make 4 of them. SpectreWorks designed one, and we now make that one under license from SpectreWorks, which is pretty cool. And that one's called the Cube Core. And then there's a bunch of companies make them for their own OEM products and stuff like that as well. So yeah, pretty cool. So there's no smarts on that. So it's a 2-layer board that just breaks everything out to where you need it. Means that you just don't end up with an aircraft full of random wires. So if you're trying to go to a big air show and tell people that you're building professional products, and they open up the front of the thing, that they're presented with something that actually vaguely looks like an avionics bay, as opposed to something with wires dangling all over the place. So
there's a lot to be said for macrame. It's great.
Yeah.
You can weave a basket out of your flight controller. There's always a bonus.
I've seen some wiring recently that frightened even me. I'm terrible, and for it to frighten me, it must have been, it really was very, very, very special indeed. But anyway, the main, hang on, Phil Hunter saying, when are we going to see more with integrated OSD like the Matic board?
Look, the reality is that that's just not really the market that we're in. That the flight controllers for the racing drones and all that sort of side of things are just so darn cheap now. We just can't even actually buy the chips for the price these things are selling for. So that is a challenge for us. We'd love to be able to justify building a little racing drone, but yeah, by the time you've put all of those components together, it's really not economically viable, unfortunately. And as much as we didn't get into this to become super tycoons, we still do actually have to pay for the bits and pieces, and get it to a distributor, and everyone needs to actually be able to afford to do that.
Let's try them. Well, I'm hoping you've got one there. I hope, well, maybe they don't exist in the real world yet, but you've got a radio link. Oh, maybe they do exist. And there we go. Now tell us some more.
So yeah, this is the Here link. So this was the big surprise announcement we had. Keeping things under wraps is always a bit of fun, and having a big product launch is always a bit of fun. So yeah, this one's about to have the battery die, but anyway, ignoring that. So if we're going for bigger is better, and people love bigger numbers, point to point, if you're holding it correctly and you hold your tongue right, and it's a perfect day and you're over a big long canyon with nothing in the way, you will get 20 kilometers with this thing. In practical shootouts with another unnamed company that I won't mention, we put some on a couple of rovers, and we did a drive out to about 1.7 kilometers before the one on their latest systems crapped out on the ground. That was in an urban environment, so pretty nasty environment, and we got to 2.2 kilometers in a similar area, so that was nice. So for real world,
unpack that a little bit more. Real world conditions on what sort of frequency, what sort of power, and what sort of antennas. I mean, it looks like you had space for 2 there, but you only had 1 on board.
The other one is sitting somewhere. I took it out for something. So look, the antennas are replaceable, so you can put whatever antenna suits your application. You can do what people love to do with these things and mod the hell out of it if you want to. But in their standard configuration, we sell it with 1 Omni and 1 patch. So yeah, the Omni is good for close in, and the patch is good for when you start pushing the envelope a little bit. Of course, we wouldn't encourage anyone to do that without a beyond visual line of sight waiver. But
of course, and we've not heard of anyone doing such a thing either. So
Never.
No.
So,
But what can I do with that box? Is it just a box? Is it just a television? I mean, what is that for watching television?
So it's a full controller. So it's got the full RC control plus a few extra buttons for programmable features. It will come with QGC and Solex on it. The first beta batch may not quite have Solex in time, but it'll definitely come with QGC as well. And
take Solex on it. Is that so? Do you get a free Solex license on that, or is that a cut down version, or what?
We will get to all the details of that one when we finally quite get that all nutted out. But
Right. Okay.
yeah, so basically, yeah, we want people to be able to see some of the stuff that that people who have had solos for a while have been a little bit spoilt with. There's been some really cool features and stuff added in for solo. We'd love to get them into this. So you end up with a companion computer as well. So the link at the other end is basically exactly the same as what's in this. You've got 4 2.2 gigahertz cores, 4 1.4 gigahertz cores, and 4 graphics cores in both ends. So there's a fair bit of computing power for doing a few things other than just running.
So let's just think about this in practical terms then. So I've got my Cube autopilot in my aeroplane, and right now I've got some sort of long-range radio system or something like that in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out and I'm going to put your receiver stroke companion computer unit next to it now, and that's that. Was it single cable or something like that? Jobs are good. And how many cables am I putting it across?
2 cables, one for serial for your telemetry data, and then you've got your RC input. So it's S bus out. So
I'm potentially getting rid of another sort of raft of telemetry radios as well.
Yeah.
And then that companion computer, what language does it speak?
So it's running Android. So it's running Android base because it doesn't have a screen or anything like that. So yeah, but everything is unlockable. So you can go into your settings and use your secret Android, tap on the serial number enough times, and you get yourself into developer mode. If you don't know how to do that, Google it.
The number 7's involved, I believe, isn't it?
I believe something along the lines of that. And once you're in that, you can load whatever you want into it and do what you want with it. So
on the aircraft side, to get extra use out of it, you said you had the graphics chips up there as well. So can we then connect a camera to that as well?
Yeah, so you can connect 2 cameras to it. At the moment, the first option will come out with dual HDMI input. Technically, you can remove the little HDMI adapter card out of it and go MIPI if you feel like building your own little PCBs. But eventually, we'll do some other adapter boards to different types of camera input as well. So yeah. So
dual HDMI. And what sort of resolution is that going to come down? It's got to be high resolution because it's downhill, isn't it? But what sort of
it's easy to get down.
Much easier than getting it up to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
what sort of not HDMI, not HD, surely?
Yeah, so 1080p at about 60 frames a second, depending on range, etc., etc. So it'll do shaping on the signal. You'll get better range if you're willing to drop your resolution down to 720. But yeah, it will do 1080p 60 quite nicely.
And to be fair, if you're just wanting to frame a shot, the 720 do anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's what you're using it in, isn't it? I mean, I'm immediately thinking of an aircraft, and now it'd be quite easy to give it a forward-facing camera to make sure I'm not bumping into anything. And then perhaps have an output of my still shots coming out my camera as it's going along to make sure it is still taking still shots. And how would the dual screens then appear on your controller?
Yeah, so look, for the beta version that comes out, it's only one of the HDMIs is going to be functional, but we'll get the second one going after that, and then basically you'll be able to hook up 2 of these if you want to, one for your forward and one for your actual camera if you want, or you can screencast or do any of those other things. It's an Android device, so screencasting is a nice, easy way.
So will Chromecast, will it?
If you've got the right app set up, yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Presumably that might mean then doing it in like Facebook Live and the other stuff that people like to do with a live recording ultimately.
Look, I wish the answer to that question was no, it can't do that, because there's nothing worse than a Facebook Live from a drone that's not well framed, and I can't stand them, but apparently I'm old. So apparently live streaming from drones is actually cool.
Maybe news events, though. So if something's happening that's of importance, then it's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, look, I suppose from a news reporter sort of point of view or something like that, being able to live stream all that critical information, like who just went out Buckingham Palace or not, that's probably important. Yeah, but anyway.
And what sort of weight, before I ask the big question, but what sort of weight are we talking about for all of this?
That is on our website, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Oh, all right then. So it's about
on that subject. Is it light enough and small enough where that could be put onto the Solo?
Of course.
Oh, good.
You know that I still have a very big soft spot for Solo, and want to see that community continue to grow. So yeah.
Does that mean you could remove the Wi-Fi card out of the Solo and use that instead, just to save some weight on removing the card?
R2 Tech is that old bloke on the left's got something there. Yeah. Digital video system. What are you showing us, Bruce? Tell us about it, Bruce.
Yeah, it's a 1080p digital video system. Runs on the 5G band, from a Chinese manufacturer, no less.
And can you control your aircraft with it as well? No,
but you can see where it crashes.
Well, that's good. And in high resolution as well. I mean, that's what you want.
FPC.
FPC, absolutely. And go on then. The final big question for it, Philip. What is the cost for this device?
The cost is still not quite locked down. Just as we sort out our final little manufacturing and packaging and getting all of that sort of stuff sorted out, we have a target in mind, but that target's looking a little bit further and further away than we'd like it to be. But we're working on that with our suppliers at the moment to try and roll it back there.
Would it be possible to get a version that when I switch it on, that perhaps the opening screen will be fireworks?
Well, the good thing is it's Android. It's unlocked. Therefore, if you look on good old Google, it'll teach you how to make yourself the little opening screen section. And as it powers on, instead of the chip manufacturer's logo, which is on there at the moment, showing up, it will show up with whatever you'd like it to. So you could
fireworks in Northern England. I mean, that's got to be my choice every time, really.
Yeah,
no one's jumping. No one's jumping. No one's jumping for this. But the all right, a more serious question on that Android part. What about third-party apps like Pix4D? I guess you've got to get them on board, I suppose. But have you had or considered talking to people like that?
Look, we haven't had that conversation yet. But if there was any company that we would talk to, that would obviously be the most logical one. Third-party apps, you can basically load anything that that you could normally load onto an Android device with a side load. Yeah, because it doesn't have, we haven't loaded, the Google Play Store onto there. We don't exactly want people loading the thing up with all sorts of crap. It is a flight controller. So we want people to try and be a little bit wise about how much of the processor they're wasting on Angry Birds while they're flying. But
well, I mean, obviously the reason I'm saying that is because there's other manufacturers that have made Android displays, and you then can't use the third-party apps that people use day to day for their jobs, which people are very surprised at, having somehow not read the instructions for the device before they purchased it. But there we are. And how many, is it nits? Is that the brightness of the screen thing? It's nits, isn't it?
It's supposedly 600 nits, which, you know, having had children go through school, the idea of 600 nits sounds terrible. But anyway.
Well, you've had the haircut for it, though, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm all good.
And Bruce as well, though, of course, yes.
Yeah, look, as far as sunlight readable, it's you know, not going to compete with like a Panasonic Toughbook sort of sunlight readable.
So is it shiny or matte finish? I mean, I can't believe so many screens come out with a shiny finish, which is, you know, you get the reflections. Yeah, why can't they do a matte finish? It makes such a difference in sunlight.
I know. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, we're not exactly in the mass production game. So you don't exactly get a few choices when you're designing things like this, and as far as what screens you get. But it is a mobile phone screen, and you would expect mobile phones nowadays to do things like that. But it's all about shiny.
Put a little advisor on there. Do not wear white shirt when flying, because I made the mistake of trying to use a shiny screen with a white shirt in the sun, and it's just useless.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we're looking at is you know, trying to design a visor of some sort for it to
Can you
make
plug
it just
FPV goggles in? Can you plug in FPV goggles?
You can't, but you can cast to it. So the casting's actually pretty darn quick. But I wouldn't consider any of the digital video transmission systems to be. Look, you're not going to FPV race with a digital video transmission system in reality.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking about racing. I was just thinking about the ambient light situation where you might want to frame something up without all the ambient light affecting the image you're looking at. If you've got goggles on, then you're getting, even though you don't have the same resolution, you've got a completely high contrast image that's probably easy to work with in some cases.
Yeah, so you can Chromecast basically to anything that can receive a Chromecast. So there's already plenty of viewing options out there for.
Yeah, so you could just stick a Chrome dongle into any goggles that took HDMI in, couldn't you? Then you just whack a Chromecast in there, and job would be a good one. Scott Spoon is asking internet connectivity options on it, Wi-Fi only or LTE available as well? Okay, so the actual communication from this to the air is actually LTE on 2.4 gig. So we actually use the LTE chipset out of the mobile phone to do the point-to-point communications. So that's how we get the range, because it's basically pretending that it's talking to a mobile phone station tower. So that's that. And then we also have Wi-Fi, and we also have Bluetooth on board. So you can use your Wi-Fi for your Chromecast or whatever you're doing on that. And that doesn't affect your actual video link because it's different radio set. So you're not.
So these are all ISM band? Is it all legal frequencies that can be used in other countries? There's no restrictions?
Yeah. So it's all ISM, which is why we've gone 2.4 rather than the traditional LTE frequencies, because you have to get all sorts of fun licenses if you want to do that. Yeah, but it's got a lovely software-defined radio in the front end of the thing, so you can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. But yeah,
can you? You said it's got SDR. Is that SDR part of the command and control, or is that just parked off, letting you do other stuff?
No, it's the command and control.
Oh, okay, all right. So I can't have it listening out on 1090 as well at the same time then.
Look, wait till next year, and I'll have some lovely announcements on that one.
So to clarify, for the Wi-Fi, are you presumably setting your phone up as a hotspot and then using that if you want to get to the internet?
If you want internet, you can hotspot. You can even do Bluetooth if you want super slow internet.
Right.
But you're from Australia. That is the home of super slow internet, isn't it?
It is. It is, except where I live, because I've got non-government funded internet here, as opposed to our national broadband.
In my day, we had paper tape coming out of the phone going into the computer. It was great.
Yes. So it doesn't connect to the internet by itself per se. You have to do it through another device.
And that's actually very much on purpose as well. It doesn't report home unless you're chosen open source ground station or Solex you ask it to. So it basically, you can set this up to do what you want it to do. There's no flight restrictions. There's no anything that could possibly be phoning home and sending any data where you don't want it to be going, unless you purposefully set it up to do that.
Got a Mode 1 version?
What's that?
Have you got a Mode 1 version?
At the moment, it is Mode 1, 2, 3, and 4. So take your pick.
Don't you just turn them upside down for Mode 1? Is that what you do? No.
9 Eagles do that. The 9 Eagles transmitters do that, yeah.
Okay. And all the buttons on there that I'm seeing, are they reconfigurable?
Everything is basically just mapped to Android. So within the Android, you can do what you want to whichever button. Technically, buttons B and C are actually volume up and down.
Oh yeah.
But they can be repurposed for mode changing, etc., etc. So yeah, that's all really up to what we decide to develop down the track. So yeah.
You said that. Sorry, go on, Bruce.
The real big question has to be, I mean, I've got an Android phone and most of the apps crash regularly. How robust is this thing? Is it really reliable enough to use for a C2 link if it's on Android?
Well, look, one of the things with flight controllers is I don't trust any RC link, to be honest. The things go wrong, and that's why we have dual stage fail safes within our autopilots to actually cope with the fact that a link could go down. I think one of the things with any of this equipment, and one of the topics that I see listed coming up probably highlights, is the fact that people have forgotten that things break. It's actually really important to realize that these are drones, they're not mobile phones. When an app crashes, that's actually serious, and you have to have a fail-safe there to mitigate that problem. Yeah, absolutely no guarantees that apps won't crash. So the way you get around that is you actually have your autopilot set up correctly to have a appropriate fail-safe. In plane, the best thing it does is sits there in circles for a while or goes into loiter, and then failing getting a link back, it can flick back into RTL and go to a appropriately pre-programmed rally point or your home location and sit there until it either runs out of batteries or you sort yourself out.
It's worth, sorry, Philip, to jump in though. I thought it was just worth adding though that because you're using Solex, because everyone might not be aware of it, that's an established piece of software that's been on the 3DR Solo for years. So you must have at least several thousand, if not more than 10,000 people potentially already running that very same software and have been doing for years. So it is at least on a stable software base. So it's not like this is the first iteration of it that's on this controller. No, that's right. And I mean, it's the same with any of the various options that are there. We've got so many years of proven flight behind it, and the fact that things like QGC are open. If there are things that are causing issues with crashes and stuff like that, anyone that finds them can actually assist in fixing it as well. So that does help to make things more robust. Obviously, the fact that we're not locking the system down, people are going to be able to have more access to be able to see what's going on in there. And as with anything, like not everything on this is going to be open source, but the system will be open and accessible, and people will be able to verify what's going on. And anyone finds any.
Well, to be the devil's advocate, then, is that not everything part? Is that your radio link part?
There's various bits and bobs on there that are just a little bit complicated to open. And anyone who knows me will know that I will be pushing and pushing and pushing until everything is finally actually fully open. But there are certain steps along the way that are hard to do, like when you've got third-party layers in there or apps and stuff like that that we just don't actually own. So that are critical parts. So yeah.
I see FAI Drones joined us, so both Australians are on the chat now. All two of them, the whole country's there, and all of New Zealand. That's amazing.
This is where I get confused because I carry both passports. So
Mick Malloy's. Oh, we got to behave. Mick Malloy's in the comments now as well. The third one. My word, we got to be very careful. FX Node made a very good point earlier about the previous Android apps over an OTG cable with our Archipilot works very well, and I use Q Ground Control on my Android phone as well, and it does work very well. I've never had an issue with it. He's also asked how much. We discussed that earlier. They don't know yet, but what you haven't asked is when.
Quick question with that.
Go on.
Can we at least narrow down? So we're talking less than $1,000.
We are talking less than $1,000 for both ends of the system, which is two pretty powerful computers, the screen controller, the everything you need.
And so what happens if I have 2 or 3 aircraft with these receiver controller units in? How does that work?
So for the beta batch, which you're going to struggle to get your hands on one of the beta batch because we're only making a very limited number in the beta round, and we're only giving 2 per distributor maximum. And most distributors have indicated that they're not going to be selling them because they want them. So yeah, get onto your distributors and pester them if you want one on the beta batch. But yeah, the next one will come out hopefully either late December or early January for the next batch, and we'll have a fairly decent sized batch for that one. To start with, they'll come as a pair. In the longer term, you'll be able to buy just receiver units, and though we haven't written the method to do it yet, we will be having a interface of some sort to allow you to select which model you're connected to, so you can have one handheld and just buy the individual modules for the aircraft.
Have you inadvertently renamed yourself Futaba or something like that? Did you ever see a point where you go down the road where you'd be making it a very clever controller?
I think it's already going to be a pretty clever controller. By the time I think just open sourcing things allows that. We've got an advantage Futaba don't have, and we've got a community that's out there that's thousands strong that, already we couldn't have built the Cube without the Archipilot community and without the PX4 community. We just couldn't do it. So yeah, I do think. But even you look at OpenTX and the FrSky stuff and all of that, like that's become a much more practical system than a lot of the old, more traditional controllers, because of the fact that it is open and some really cool stuff's been added. So you start mixing all of that together and you add the open source capabilities, and that really expands what something can do.
Absolutely. Now, what is the website we should all march off to look for this?
At the moment, there's a very limited amount of information on proficnc.com. If you have a look in the store, you'll find it. Now, as usual, you can't buy it from proficnc.com. That's where our distributors buy their stuff, and that's it. If you want to buy stuff, you have to go to your local distributor. We will not be doing direct sales. We've no interest in doing that whatsoever, because again, our strength is the community, and our community involves our resellers. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a good thing, because the problem you have is when you end up with the manufacturer competing against the resellers. I think that creates rifts. So I think that's a very good approach. Are you saying with the beta batch that those are due to go out shortly, so that all the distributors will at least have a couple of units? Was I right in understanding that?
Yeah, that's the plan. As soon as we can get the beta batch out, we're in the process of setting up GitHub and getting everything set up so that we can work out how to do updates and make sure all of that works for the beta batch. And then we'll probably be doing some changes for the production release to make it a bit easier for consumers.
So this beta batch being out, you're looking? Are we talking like end of November? Like next 4 weeks or a bit longer?
Basically, we want to make sure that they're actually at distributors before Christmas. So yeah.
And so just to recap, then you end up with an Android-based controller in your hand that's got a ground control station on board. Via some magical elves, it's got a range potentially of up to about 20 kilometers, and then in your aircraft you have another device which is effectively your receiver with a companion computer which attaches via 2 wires, and at the moment will give you one HDMI downlink or one HD downlink back to your handset.
Yep, basically. Oh, and it's got a GPS in it as well.
Well, you shouldn't use it because it should be in your hand. I mean, you should know where it is. I mean, you know, it's not that hard. I mean, come on, really. And yeah, and you can connect. No, well, and it's going to be sub 1,000. So I guess John Gustafson saying OpenTX is great. Perhaps we'll end up in some sort of a world where people will be developing skins and developing firework-based skins, and
firework-based skins. Though can't have that.
Well, it depends where you are, doesn't it? And commands and stuff for it in an OpenTX sort of a way, I guess. Very exciting. Very exciting. All right, stay with us. Stay
with this.
Go on.
So when we're going to get the R2 gimbal to control with it?
Oh, you've been waiting the whole call to ask that question, haven't you? Look, gimbals are an interesting topic. We're actually discussing this a little bit before the call started. There's not so many people building your smaller vehicles anymore because they're all buying white things. Actually, they're more black and grey plastic nowadays. But anyway, and that's really damaged the market big time for a lot of the traditional gimbal builders. So it's been a challenging market because what people expect price-wise from a gimbal is just so low now. I know when we built the gimbal for solo with 3DR, the actual cost of build ended up being pretty much the retail price. So if you work out that there's actually margins for a few people in between, it actually worked out that gimbal cost more to build than they sold it for, which obviously didn't help the cash flow. So to actually build it in the volumes that we would be building things, because I mean we are a low volume builder, gimbals would not be cheap. So to do a gimbal that would really suit a 100% open source software solution, it's going to be a challenge. It is on our list, and we do intend on doing it. But it's probably going to be a more evolutionary thing. We've got ESCs happening and stuff like that. ESCs, motor controllers, you need them for gimbals. So we will get there. But whether we do it ourselves, whether we partner with an existing one.
It's just, as you know, my feelings on it. It's just the one frustration with Pilot because you have this great software. You can build really, very functional rigs with software that you can trust, that you can set up very specific to requirements. But the gimbal is always the letdown because it's no good these days just being able to point a gimbal or take a shot. You want to control the ISO, you want to be able to change the shutter speed and all this manually. And that's why DJI still got the market, because you can do all that. And it'd just be nice to have that part of the jigsaw solved, so that you could do I mean, we've seen it already, a few commercial operators, especially now with the DJI battery malarkey that's going on. I'm saying I just wish on RG Pilot I could have one with the gimbal, because I'd just move over, going back to self-built again. And especially in the UK, it's even more attractive now, because there used to be the 150-meter limit if it was over 7 kilograms, and they've got rid of that now, so that you can actually go back to having bigger rigs. They're not the they don't have the issues with them that they had even just a couple of months ago. That now makes it all a lot more appealing.
Yeah, as Lewis just typed in the comments there, the Storm 32 is actually a really good gimbal controller.
You don't have all that though. You don't have ISO and shutter speed and all that control. And the most I've seen anyone saying is, well,
that's not the gimbal though. That's the camera.
But
even on a solo gimbal,
that's what the point of to talk about those two separately. We're going back in time 3 years, 4 years. The world's moved on. We should be talking now about gimbal and camera systems. They have to be talking to each other. Having a word with the camera manufacturers and saying, let's have an open standard. Even the manufacturers then could just adopt. They could put in some open standard, and then it could go on any gimbal, and you have all that control.
You have that, Ian, but not on the level that you're expecting. If you go to Gphoto, if you go to Gphoto and you integrate Gphoto with a flight controller, that's quite easy to do. You have, for instance, using a Storm 32, you get lots of controls, not only on the gimbal, but also with some specific models of cameras. So there is integration, not perhaps at the point that you would like to, but for instance, controlling a focus motor on a camera, it's doable, can be done, not very hard to do. So you just have to do some integration for yourself, because as you know, the Storm 32 is not a gimbal for itself. You have to, it's a controller that you have to get the hardware, the motors and all that for the gimbal. If you want to go bigger, then you get commercial gimbals that work very well. For instance, I can recall Gramsci that work very well and speak Mavlink. So there are solutions, not part of the flight stack. The flight stack has one function: work well.
I just find with them all that they've all got a compromise there, because you always see people on trying to solve it. They're buying third-party cables for control. Then you've got the physical problem of getting the cable to the gimbal. You often can't feed it down, so you have a cable hanging off. So you can't use it all the way around, because you can literally wrap the cable around the gimbal. It just seems as always everyone's compromising and trying to find workarounds. And it'd just be nice that you could go shopping cart, boom, buy, and you've got something that's complete and there, and you can just get on and install it, because the people haven't got the patience these days to be trying to do workarounds. They just want to buy, put stuff together.
Sorry, Ian. Look at what Gramsci is offering. They're coming down on their gimbals. So you get 95% of what you're saying buying a small Gramsci.
See, if I got Gramsci and I want to put a GH5 on there, I'm going to be able to do nothing other than, lightly take a photo or activate the recording. I'm not going to change my shutter speed. I'm not going to be able to switch modes or anything that I actually want to do with the camera.
That's another issue altogether. So it's controlling. For instance, DJI controls the entire stack. It controls the camera, controls the gimbal, controls the flight controller, and they have the entire control.
But it makes the camera. That's the key bit there. You're not just taking a camera.
Try to use a DJI with a Sony camera. Oh my God, you're in for pain. Try to use then switch a camera from a Sony to a Nikon, and you get the same doses of pain. So if you get one DJI gimbal with their camera, it works fantastic. If you try to, now I need a red camera. Oh my God, goodbye. We'll speak next year.
Yeah, I mean, but by that though, if we look at 3DR and what they did with GoPro, where two companies spoke to each other and agreed, and there was an interface, and then you got all that control. It's just
Come on, we are not speaking of cameras.
That's the world's worst example. Not because of what the camera is, because GoPro did not talk to us. They were stubborn. They were a pain in the neck, you know, and they still refuse to allow us to have access to that API to actually release that code.
In the end, it's a perfect, because then they thought we'll release our own drone, compete against you, and then they took off the Hero port and so on. So the point I was getting there is that you can have a drone and a camera manufacturer, and you can have them speak to each other. And we're not doing that. You know, if there was an open standard that said this is an open standard for a drone to speak to a camera, and that was out there, so people could adopt it, you know, that would be a step forward.
You get 90% of that using Mavlink, and you have cameras. For instance, if you go to industrial cameras, you get great cameras that speak Mavlink. You have even FLIR cameras that are already speaking Mavlink. The company that Graypoint, I believe it's the name of the company that FLIR bought, also has wonderful cameras that speak Mavlink. You get a host of industrial type cameras that all speak Mavlink. But there's come on. But there's no push for. Come on, who wants? Are you going to tell? Canon or Nikon or Sony that you want to have an interpreter of Mavlink inside their camera? Good luck with that.
To give you an example, just on that very issue, you have got camera manufacturers now speaking to handheld gimbal manufacturers. So you can buy your crane gimbal, and that can speak to, you know, that can interface with your Sony cameras. Your DJI Ronin can interface with Sony and Panasonic cameras.
Watch, read. Don't read only the titles. Read the little letters below the title, because you can put on a Ronin, which is a DJI company, you can put a Sony. Yes. What kind of functions are available? Not what you would expect.
Yeah, well, no, for the handheld, the function people want is they want focus pulling. So that's the only feature they really want, and that has been put in there. But so if people said, oh, for a drone, I want to focus pull, I want to change ISO and this, I mean, they're all basic functions there. You can do them all from the app. You know, from all your apps available. You know, we really should be there. You know, it's 2018 now. It's not 20.
Come on, even with the most advanced
midnight. Anyway,
come on, Ian. Even with the most advanced hacking on cameras, which is G-Photo, you don't get much that you can do on a Sony camera. It's the worst example. I know what I'm speaking, because it's the worst example of openness to the market and to the community. You get that stupid multi-port on the camera, and you kind of connect to the camera, and you can start and stop the video, can start trigger the camera, and there's not much that you can do, unfortunately, because the cameras are great. Our lights could be are a very good value to use on a drone. Come on, my company uses Sony cameras hanging from drones, so we've been through all the pain and suffering of integrating cameras with drones.
And I think the biggest issue with all of this is actually the companies wanting this. Sony, again, great example, the R10C camera. It's a really good camera, and it has an excellent SDK for absolute full camera control, preview over USB. It's got all sorts of features that are really, really handy, which is why that's used in the solo site scan. But the NDA on the standard is so thick that it can't actually be used across the board, and they won't release it across the board. They only release it to strategic partners, which means it's totally impractical for everyone else. The R10C could easily be a almost industry standard camera if they'd actually release that for people to use, but they don't. They don't care. We're actually not a big enough industry that most of these companies actually care. Or they'll talk to one little company and they think they're talking to a
a major player. But the reality is, in this industry, that this industry is full of a lot of people that are important. There's not one particular major player in this industry other than the one that we're all trying to compete with. And so they'll tie themselves up with this next new startup that's going to do this amazing thing and not talk to the rest of the community. I wish Sony would actually come and turn up to an ArduPilot dev call. But they're not going to do that, because dealing with an open source team and not a big corporate company is not what they do. They don't understand the concept of that. But I was going to say, if you want a ready to go setup, go buy yourself a shot over drone. That thing's really nice. And put a good red Epic underneath that, and absolute full camera control, absolutely everything you want. Don't know how many $100,000 you've got to spare, but it'll give you everything you need. And as Lewis was saying, the Gremsy, it really is getting to plug and play. It's a great. There's a bunch of gimbals that they do, and they're really good. And there are a bunch of cameras that can have full camera control. The Red Epic obviously can. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera that has a really good interface that can be used to control pretty much everything. They do exist, and they're out there. But you're looking at a Panasonic GH5. Well, if you can get Panasonic to talk to any of us and put some extra code on there, well, great.
Yeah, I mean, having a Micro Four Thirds option would be good. The unfortunate thing is the Blackmagic, that's got pretty poor. It's a CMOS update speed, so you do get your skewing with that. The term's gone out of my head off the top of my head, but it isn't the best sensor, unfortunately.
Rolling shutter.
Yes, rolling shutter. You've got the rolling shutter issue, so it's the worst thing to have on a drone for that reason.
Like every GoPro.
What's that, sorry?
Like every GoPro has a rolling shutter,
and Phantom 3s and goes as
well. This is a case of having the decent gimbal, and the fact that at least with shorter speeds, it has been a thing they have improved. So sensors have moved on since the first iterations of the Blackmagic.
Yeah, I think the point isn't which camera is a better camera for a particular task. It's if you want that, then maybe you could get some lobbying going towards Panasonic to do that instead of taking people's fun away from them with petitions. That could be a good thing. Is that would be great use of your resources and time. And I mean, you're up half the night these days anyway because you can't sleep, so you may as well use that time to chase down.
He's saving money as well because he's not buying fireworks, so he's saving money. So he's got time and money to.
I'm not saving any money because it's all going on.
Ian, the thing is, if you approach a camera manufacturer and you say, I have a specific need for using model X of your camera, and they'll ask you, how many tens of thousands of cameras are you planning to buy? That's the first question that you get from them. It's not thousands, it's tens of thousands of cameras. And you go, sorry, I wasn't expecting that number. And you just want to buy with a small change. I have a guy doing that on every camera I buy. So I have a guy that is doing that change manually. So they could do it in the factory. We would buy those cameras. So the numbers game is a real pain.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Working the numbers industry.
I just feel we'll be asking the same question in 2022. Where's the integrated Ardu gimbal? So I'm going to moan about it until Philip eventually gives in and builds one.
Come on, you can. There are options that you can build cameras. So if you get, for instance,
I recommend to everyone at this point.
On the gimbal, there's the Gremsys. It's almost the most go-to gimbal to go with ArduPilot at this stage. There's no point on reverse engineering the protocol of DJI to do what you can do easily with a Gramsci for $1,000. There's no point. It's just an academic exercise. If you go to build yourself a camera, come on, there are industrial modules that you can buy, and you can specify to the manufacturer, and you can buy in limited quantities. That is in the hundreds of units that you can specify to do point gray. Point gray is the name I was looking at a bit. So you can go and specify certain specs within reason and with the cost to certain manufacturers. And if you go to the real camera manufacturers, you can build yourself a camera. Everybody knows that if you got the money, you can go to Shenzhen and go to a factory and build yourself Ian's super duper mobile phone. You can do the same with a camera. So just open up your checkbook, get the plane to Shenzhen, and we'll have Ian's super duper camera with super duper interfaces.
And we'll only take a small commission for selling them here as well. It won't be much. It'll just be a tiny commission.
I get 10% because I gave him the idea.
No, but I've given you the means of communication for that idea. So, I mean, I think I've got to be up for quite a cut as well.
Oh, unfortunately, my checkbook wouldn't go that far, not unless they accept overdrafts.
Checkbooks still exist. Are they still a thing in the world? Checkbooks.
Come on, you just get some blockchain, some AI in the middle, and start a GoFundMe or a whatever campaign.
Just kickstart it. You just need to use some GoPro footage and pretend it's your own.
Yeah,
and you'll be all good.
We could write a manual for that, couldn't we? The how to run a crowdfunder. I see. I can't remember what it was. Another
Lily. Let's do. Wasn't the Lily were not English?
I wasn't going to mention the name of the company.
What was the first big bust on drones? Wasn't it an English company?
Well, there was Lily, and then there was that one in Wales. I can't remember the name.
That one. You're nearby there, Ian. So you have the power of proximity with Wales. So
everything's very close over there. And then, but I read that Indiegogo, I can't remember what it is for arguments. Let's say it was, I think it might have been a 360 camera or something that was on Indiegogo, and they've absolutely left loads of people high and dry for that as well. It wasn't a camera; it was something else. So they are pretty. I mean, Indiegogo are pretty shameless. It seems they're the crowd that have left the people high and dry with that Canadian X8 with a Plexi drone, which is nothing's happening with that either. So I'm just amazed that. So what we actually need to start isn't a drone that we're going to crowdfund. We need to start a crowdfunding business so that we can just keep pulling in all those little extra bits of money.
Always make money. Always.
That's the bit we need. We need to make our own. That'll be great, and it won't be our fault, and we'll keep money.
When we were looking at doing this, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you should do a kickstart to make it happen," and I couldn't justify, the idea of getting that money in and having the risk of not being able to actually deliver it just wasn't cool. Pre-selling something that is vaporware is just not cool. Develop it first, make it first, and then turn up with it. And it's hard to do because trying to convince manufacturers to come on board. I mean, conversations we've had with various chip manufacturers and everything. Who are you guys? It's the first thing, and you explain who you are, and they look at the market a little bit, and it's not even with if you add every manufacturer of autopilots together, we're small numbers compared to what these guys are used to dealing with. Even DJI struggle. They're still not big enough numbers. As much as we all think they dominate the market compared to a mobile phone manufacturer, they're nothing. We're not a big enough market to get the interest of a lot of these companies.
Oh, you can't say that. You're not supposed to say that on an industry sort of based things. You're supposed to say this is better than sliced bread, and we're all going to be millionaires next week. And oh my word,
I like to be realistic. This is why I'm an engineer and not a salesman.
Oh, showman! Look, we've gone easily over our hour, so that's amazeballs. I was going to go on, yeah.
Because I am specifically here to bust Philip's balls. Can we ask about the solar batteries? Because it's an ongoing drama in the solar world that everyone's looking at Philip to solve.
Look, it's an interesting one. Unfortunately, we've had a bunch of people buy solos at $100 or $300, and they've got this image that this is what these things cost and are worth to build. We need to remind people that solos were $1,000 without a gimbal, another $400, and we're talking US dollars here, not our southern dollars that are worth a fraction of that. So I mean, by the time you bought a solo in Australia with a gimbal on it, and probably similar in New Zealand, you're up for about $2,500, and it's a lot of dollars. So now people have been picking them up for $100, or I picked up 7 for $80 each a while ago, just cause. People are expecting that to be a reference for what the prices of new accessories are going to be. And it's just not realistic. When 3DR built the batteries, they were building batteries for the number of drones they were planning on building, and they were planning on building like 400,000 of the darn things or more in the first year. And they assumed each user needed at least 2 batteries. I think it was 2-point-something batteries per drone, etc. So that's why it's taken so long for us to actually run out of the original batch, because there were too many of the original batch built. And now people are wanting a new battery, and we're building one. There will be a new battery for Solo. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But unfortunately, I think people are wanting to buy it for $40. And that's just not going to happen. It will be somewhere between $150 and $200 for a battery for Solo from us. When we get it done. But as you've seen by what I've been showing you today, I have been a little bit distracted with other projects. And to be honest, I do solo stuff because I want to see solo succeed, because I'm passionate about that and that community. It's not financially viable to support solo in any way, shape, or means. Each green cube we put into a solo would have been much more profitable to sell as a black cube somewhere else. There is nothing profitable about the solo community whatsoever.
To pin you down, can we say Solo Battery 2019?
Obviously, my intention was 2018, and I haven't got there. So we'll be aiming for 2019. I've got the new battery on my desk. As far as the cells, we still haven't finished the BMS, and we haven't finished the plastics. Until we've locked down the BMS and the cells, then we'll do the plastics. And the plastics won't be the same shape necessarily as the old one. We are going to probably make it a little bit different. We're not going for industrial design. We're going for practicality on this one, so we'll probably get a bit of kickback from that. But we just want to make as cheap as possible, slightly better battery for solos and for other things that use solo batteries, i.e. the Aeon R1 uses solo batteries and stuff like that.
I was thinking along those lines. Anything you can do to make the battery so it's usable by the wider RG pilot community, obviously the more sense it makes from a financial viewpoint.
Yeah, and that's why the case probably won't be the same shape as it was before, is what we'll be looking at doing a smart battery controller that will work with lots of different batteries, because people want smart battery controllers. It's a really difficult thing. Smart battery controllers do a great job at maintaining the life of the battery. The fact that we do have, 3 years later after the last solo battery was built, a bunch of people that are getting pretty close to original flight times on their batteries because they've actually remembered to charge them every now and again.
says a lot for what the battery management does. You know, but for normal people, the good old LiPo, buy it for $20, $30 and plug it in and fly, is a better option for most people. And I'm really surprised more people aren't just plugging the LiPo into their Solo and going for a fly and remembering how to use a timer. It's not that big a deal. You can put a 8,000 milliamp hour normal battery into a Solo, and it weighs the same as the 5.2 with the smart battery and the big case and everything. And okay, you've got a bit of an ugly strap hanging around your Solo to hold it in, but it flies for original flight time that was advertised. Exactly, Lewis. So if people want to fly...
Can't you just put a thing up on Thingiverse, people print their own 3D carrier and throw a LiPo from Hobby King in there? Wouldn't that do the job?
Yeah, the thing that's missing is because the Solo was set up only for a smart battery, there's no way of putting any form of battery monitoring onto it without doing significant hacks to the board, which a lot of people in that side of thing, they're RTF people, and the idea of pulling out a soldering iron or something like that doesn't really appeal. And that is a significant part of our community now. So supporting them is a little bit more challenging. Yeah, RTF people are not the ones on the forums asking for new batteries, because they've probably already done that. Yeah. So the answer is yes, it'll be happening. No, it won't be cheap. And at some stage, we'll probably put out a thing, you know, getting people to tell us if they're going to buy one or not, because we'll need some real numbers to go for it before we actually cut the mold. Because plastics are the most expensive bit.
So you've almost started the vintage drone club of drones with this Solo getting the Model T treatment of new parts being made forever for it.
Yep. And actually talking to a company over in China recently that's actually talking about building new plastics for it as well. So with new video links, new autopilots, new ESCs, you know, eventually a gimbal.
It's like Trigger's broom. That's something people won't get, but it's like Trigger's broom. It's something you can Google from Del Boy. Well, Ian, have you got any more controversy before I try and see if Bruce has got anything to say?
No, I'll let Philip off now.
Yeah,
come on.
So yeah, well, look back, dear viewers. Watch back at the beginning to hear all about the various new exciting colours of cubes and all that sort of thing. And the Here Link, it was called, wasn't it? That radio. Yeah. Here Link. Yeah, that's right. So Bruce, you've been waiting quietly there. Has anything caught your eye this week?
Yeah, but it's all right. I had stitches and it's all repaired now. There's been a number of things, haven't there? Here in New Zealand, the Airways Corporation, I think they call themselves, are doing a competition where you could win $5,000 for coming up with the best drone safety idea. So that'll no doubt create a lot of activity and interest. Airways is they're the people who want to basically regulate, register, control, and almost ban drones. So it's good to see them doing something a little positive. Makes a change. And I'm sure you saw my video on the importance of GA pilots or commercial pilots staying above 500 feet. I think we have conclusive evidence that that's essential.
Too low.
500 is more than enough if you're at 400. But I mean, yeah, that's created a lot of feedback. A lot of people, amazing number of comments on the video, people saying, yeah, I was flying somewhere and the plane comes through at 300 feet, or planes fly over my house at 100 feet every day. The regulators just don't seem to be doing anything about it. They'd much rather get on the case of drone operators who are flying legally and legitimately, because you might be at 200 feet in an airplane, some 747 pilot passes by 10 miles away and he sees your drone and files an incident report. They're not looking at the real cause of the problem. And I'm hoping that, I know a lot of people have contacted CAA in New Zealand as a result of that video. Hopefully the noise will drive them to do something. And I mean, for example, I'm going to contact them myself and say, it's Christmas in 7 weeks. A lot of people will be getting out there with drones. The time for you to remind the aviation community about the risks below 500 feet is now, so that they're not going to get caught out by flying at 300 feet through the countryside and get taken out by a drone that's being flown legally. It's like the emphasis has to come off us and onto the people whose lives are at risk.
Absolutely. Well, we're only here to help save them, aren't we? We're only here to make their life safer and better. That's what I'm saying. I made my little speech to one of the senior guys at IATA and eight Civil Aviation Authority heads last week. Well, I think I told you they weren't as so impressed with the no GA below 2K, but
they didn't give you a standing ovation. Then they didn't cheer you, and
they did stop. They didn't make them stop and think, because I mean, you are removing most of their paperwork, aren't you? If you stop people hitting mountains and having effective areas in which to, or giving themselves longer to find the forced landing, then you're saving them a lot of paperwork, and so saving the planet as well. Paperwork.
Yeah.
Paperwork as well.
Another thing I read on a little website that I drop into occasionally, I forget what it was called, something ASU News or something, is about the BMFA and EASA regulations. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about that, Gary.
Well, best I find the link quick. Can you remember what they said? I think
basically BMFA has come out with a statement saying that the EASA have agreed to give them exemption basically from the EASA regulations. It'll be down to CAA and their own thing. So you will probably have the situation where if you're flying at a BMFA approved field, you won't have to follow all the silly, ridiculous things that the Europeans have decided are essential for safety. But that does leave us to this thing. We're more and more seeing it. It's going to happen in the USA. It's happening in the UK. We are going to be relegated to a few small designated fields in the middle of nowhere. And outside of that, basically, it'll be no fly. We are going to be corralled into controllable tiny little pockets, which is a worry.
Come on, Bruce. A few years ago, when we wanted to fly, before the drone craze era, if you wanted to fly, we had to go to the approved flying fields by the Model Aircraft Aviation. And you're saying we were on the Wild West, so we were cowboys. So we would fly in parks and parking lots and all that, all those empty spaces. So we were doing some cowboy acting, and we were called the cowboys because we were flying outside the approved regulated fields. It's only this drone craze, this selfie on a drone craze that has brought up this fly anywhere problem.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because you might say, well, you shouldn't be allowed to fly drones in parks, but you can walk dogs in parks. And here in New Zealand, 13,000 people every year are bitten by dogs, yet we can walk them in a park. I don't think, and I remember as a kid, I saw people flying model aircraft in the parks. That's what got me interested in it. I was in a park and I saw someone flying a control line plane. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. It kindled a little interest. People aren't just going to be walking past an authorized flying field and see a model by accident, are they? Because they're going to be well out of the way. So how will kids get their introduction to the hobby? How will they get the excitement, the passion that first glimpse of a model aircraft flying at the local park can cause?
On the PlayStation.
That will get them excited about PlayStation and nothing else.
Yeah, no, I do think when we had this chat a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? I do think children actually do want to make things. I don't think they're not as removed from wanting to create a thing that turns into a thing that moves or shakes or rattles or rolls or whatever it does. I think we definitely downplay millennials and youngsters with our old heads on. And it's a shame to shut the doors behind them, because we're all off making pots and pots and pots of gold so they can get stuffed. Get out the way. Because I quite honestly, that's how a lot of it feels to me. I saw a UTM working actually, with air traffic controllers and all that sort of gizmo last week. And what horrified me, and I saw it quite instantly, I saw that the operators, the drone operators, were completely unaware of the air picture. They had completely removed themselves from what was going on, really, and were utterly relying on an app and a screen to give them the news, as it were. There was no, I I'm not articulating this very well, but I just watched people disappear into a screen, and they weren't part of the air picture. So some things have got to be thought about this, about how we alert operators and how we communicate information of aircraft inbound and stuff. It's all there. All the bits of the puzzle are there, but you've got to stay in it. I'm not putting that very well. Bruce, you've unmuted your mic. Help me, Bruce. Help me.
So effectively, they reduce their situational awareness by blinkering themselves to everything, but only the information coming through that app, which is that's one of the things that causes accidents.
Yeah, no, exactly, and you could see that the heads were no longer swiveling and thoughts weren't happening as regards that, and there were lots of people around to have eyes on whatever. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of work on that sort of thing, and the correct ways of displaying information. Paul Johnson says he used to bike ride 15 miles to his flying field. Well, what we used to do when we'd had enough of our free flight models, and I may have mentioned this before, but we used to put some fireworks in them, Ian, and then we used to put them up on the tow line, and we used to let them blow up on the cricket field in the village, and they didn't like that very much. And another one there for Ian. If you haven't been following Ian on the Book of the Face, I'm actually on his. I'm an old man as well. We've just had November the 5th. Which I think probably in New Zealand, Australia, and the UK is cause for lighting of fireworks. No idea why they do it here as well, or probably in Australia or New Zealand either. Yeah, lots of fireworks going off, and it's a bit much. So I'm kind of on the inside, but for the purposes of this argument, I'll be on the other team. But people have been ribbing mercilessly about ruining other people's fun on Facebook. So that's what we've been jibing at in the background here. Over to you, Ian.
I don't even want to go down the fireworks. Yeah, people know me. I'm from the city of Bradford, and we've got we've got it worse here than most cities. The fireworks at the fire brigade and at the police and into pubs, and it's getting to the point where it's getting silly now. So there's a petition that you can do, one official for the government, so it will be discussed in Parliament. But it started out a few days ago, and it's only had about 40,000 initially. It's already past 200,000 signatures. So there's a lot of people that are thinking, that this is getting beyond silly now. Funnily enough, the only reason, well, certainly I know like the numbers of complaints on fireworks, but the reason for that was obviously trying to find something that annoyed people for a comparison against drones to show how few complaints there are about drones. So that's how we had the figures. But yeah, it's good to be able to complain about something else rather than having to be defending drones for once.
Yes, and what's the magic number? Sorry, I'll get back to you in a minute there, Bruce. Sorry, man. What's the magic number in the UK where it has to be read in Parliament?
100,000. So it got to 100,000 just 2 days ago. So it's already twice past when it needs to be read.
Yeah. I kind of. Anyway, Bruce, what were you going to say about fireworks? Something horrific, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can see Ian's angle on this, because within a few years, swarms of drones are going to replace fireworks anyway, and I dare say Ian's applied to Intel to get the license for the UK, so get the fireworks banned, get the drones up there, ching ching. Ah, great thinking.
That's what he wants. It's what he wants the gimbal for. That's what he wants that for, and it's what he needs new batteries for. How's he going to get that swarm working if he hasn't got the batteries? He's never going to be able to do it.
No, what he wants is to do the same as that video that goes on the internet that has explosive charge on a small drone. Is that what you want, Ian?
Well, if you fly it hard enough, they've all got an explosive charge on them. They really, but anyway,
that's another.
Especially if you fly them into moody
instead.
You have to go again on that.
I've picked on a fair bit on this topic. I'd love to say I actually disagree with him on the topic, but moving on, we can't potentially agree with him because that would be wrong. But
yes, there is a law. Though again, people won't know that it is law that you must disagree with Ian. That is actually
it is law. whenever we agree with Ian, we must disagree with him anyway. So Ian's been putting up with our crap for 5 years or so now, so nothing new. But the thing that did get me on this, that as much as what's happening in Bradford is really, really bad, people shooting anything at a fire brigade, those people should be locked up and put away. Like it's not acceptable. It's not cool. But my concern is people who are misusing a product, whether it's a kitchen knife, whether it's a car, whether it's a drone, whether it's a firework, cricket bat. I mean, how many cricket bats are used in England?
The Australian team misuses cricket bats around the world on a regular basis.
That's balls, not bats.
Oh, yeah. All right. No, okay.
Yeah. And now I pull out my New Zealand passport.
Yeah.
The point being that if we keep attacking the implement that's being used, and I know right now all the American viewers who are on the red side of politics are going, yeah, don't blame the guns. Guns are an exception; they should be banned. Just to put that out there. Fireworks are not the problem. Knives are not the problem. The problem is we actually need to enforce laws that are already there. It's the same with drones. People that are flying in a way that is illegal, book them, make examples of them, great. But don't keep attacking the rest of society. And when a situation is out of hand completely, like it clearly is at the moment over in England, with the fireworks situation, unfortunately, banning them is not going to help because, well, in Australia, illegal fireworks are still going off. You can't buy fireworks in Australia. You have to illegally import them. And they're still going off. They're still causing problems. There's still pets running away because in New Year's and Australia Day and whenever, you know, fireworks go off, people still manage to get them. They still manage to cause trouble. Hooligans still cause trouble. If we're going to ban things that hooligans are doing, we need to ban soccer because clearly it is the sport of hooligans. We all understand that. You
haven't seen hockey players in the US. I think
hockey players in Canada, especially. I mean, they're
oh yes, Canada. That's it. Yes.
Yeah. Like it's the wrong mentality to start banning the thing. We actually need to get discipline back into society in general, because get rid of fireworks, they'll start pelting rocks at fire trucks. You can't ban rocks. It just doesn't work. But assault, and that's already a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Like, lock people up, make examples of their people, and don't put them on community behaviour orders and good behaviour bonds and, you know, community work orders and blah blah blah. Actually, lock them up.
I do agree with that. The point of as I've been doing on Facebook about a ban is it's just about actually once you start and start off at a ban and make an issue of it, at least MPs are looking at it and knowing it's an issue, so that they can't sort of pretend they don't know that something's going on. So it can be looked at again, because we have what's called trading standards, which are, you know, that it's a weaker authority than, say, the police, and they're the people that are policing, you know, retailers selling fireworks to underage kids, and it's clearly not working. No one has any fear of them. So it's the same situation with drones, where you get problems because you don't enforce the law, and that's the whole problem, is where you have problems and the police are just not there doing anything about it.
Bans are a cop-out. Bans are when people can't come up with a reasonable solution, they ban it. It's the easy way out. It's typically been the way that, you know, when people can't be bothered analysing the problem and formulating proper solutions, just ban it. You know, and it'll go away. It didn't work with liquor in the Prohibition era, and it doesn't work with anything else. guns, you know, are banned and people still get them in the UK and shoot people, and you can't ban knives, and stabbings are now massive. And as you're saying about cricket bats, I saw some guy got beaten to death with a small cricket bat by his stepson the other day in the UK. It's just, we're treating a symptom rather than a cause. And if you treat symptoms, it's just like having a septic wound and putting band-aids on it. It's just covering up the problem. It's not fixing the problem. We need some penicillin out there. We need to get out there and just analyze what's gone wrong with society. I've got some ideas. Call me. I'll sort it out for you. But that is the problem.
We've all come up with different problems and different aspects of the problem, and there's only one common aspect on all of that.
People. That's it.
So ban people, and have the robot overlords take over.
Hey.
Welcome, Mr. Elon Musk.
That was a really smooth way to radio end this whole sort of thing. That was very good, Louis. Very good. Brought it all the way back round to robotics. That was very good indeed. And I think, look at this. Look, we've been going there an hour 35. That's just almost unheard of. I think we probably better let everyone go because, you know, it's torture for the dear viewer out there. Dear viewer, next week on Round the Table, we'll be discussing World something or other. No, no. Thanks very much for watching. We'll be here again same time, same back channel, 2100 GMT. Be safe, whatever you're doing the rest of the week. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Ian, for being a good sport. The septic wound in New Zealand there, Louis, and of course, Philip. Thanks very much. And we'll need to rewind quite a long way if you want to hear all about Philip's products. They were right back at the beginning of this, right back a whole hour and a half ago. So thanks very much, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Take care. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye all. Cheers.
See you later.